Hello, welcome back to the channel, The PROWIRC Method, where we discuss concepts from the book Happiness and Wellbeing Through Balance and Progress, The PROWIRC Method. So we just had a little break of a few weeks there without doing any of our long format shows because I've been in the process of moving. And if you know that anytime you're moving, you're spending some days packing, moving, home renovations. A lot of things get packed in there in a short period of time. So I guess you could say during that time period, I was working on some of my organization, and I was definitely working on my endurance. So if you're working on your endurance, you get into the home renovations, and you start putting in 3 to 6 hours at a time on physical work, and for a few days it kind of you feel it physically, but then you suddenly get this extra added bounce in your physical energy. So that feels really good. That feels like you're working on one area of your life, your personal power, another area, your organization. And so things are getting done, but now we're back to some of the usual schedule things, and going to get back to these regular videos here. So today we are talking about the concept. The concept is techniques for living versus living. This is a concept that sort of has come up as a result of people asking me, I really enjoy all the exercises and things to do in the book. They really kind of get me going in the right direction in a lot of ways. But there are a lot of things that you can put in your schedule there. And there are, obviously a lot of concepts and things to think about that. And how do you kind of do all that all the time while you're actually, overlaying that over a schedule of what you're already doing? Now in the book, I have a chapter on scheduling, actually. And in that chapter, we really go over things like the value of your time and how to recapture your time and, how to track it and make sure that you're using it in the most progressive way, doing things that you want to do. We even come up with different names and ideas for different parts of your day so that you can try to become romantic about the time slots of your day that you are giving away to certain activities, to make sure that you're using them as time slots of value, and that kind of thing. But I have one friend who brought up sort of the concept very directly, the question that I just posed to you earlier there, who says, wow, how do we, with all these great sort of concepts and ideas and exercises, how do we implement these, all at once, so that we can get the full value of this? And I thought that's a really interesting question, and it reminded me and took me back to a time when I was actually first learning to play musical instruments. And so I'm going to give you an example from that and an idea of how to deal with this concept of how you implement ideas like this. And it goes back to, as I've mentioned a few times before, I'm a musician. I play several instruments. And starting off with, when I was about 11, 12 range, I started to study the drums. And obviously, each one of the instruments that I spent my time learning, I spent a lot of time learning to implement actual techniques and exercises. And, in music, you have to learn your scales. And, you have to really, if you want to be a proficient musician and you want to have a lot of go-to buttons someday as you're performing, the more technique you learn early on, the more that's going to help you. So the example that I'm going to talk about here is when I was in the age range of about 14 to 15, I found this incredibly great pro drummer who was also, young at the time, but very already established and an incredible player. and who gave me personal lessons for a period probably of around a year, where we had a lesson every week or a couple of weeks, but they'd be long. They would be like 2 to 3 hour lessons because we couldn't get together all the time. And this guy, you know, when I watched his playing and I listened to his playing, he was such a great player. And, you know, I really, really admired that. So I wanted him, you know, to teach me how to improve my playing and how to become a good drummer. So for that year of studying with him, we really focused on, the details of technique. Like, here is the fulcrum where your drumstick, you know, pivots from. This is what direction are you holding your hands so that you actually have the best manipulation of your wrists and power, you know, so you're not creating injury, and to have control of your sticks. And how do the fingers, when you're doing your exercises, look at how the fingers come in and out from your hand, and how do they control the sticks, and are your fingers actually apart, or are they touching one another? We're talking in-depth technique on that. And, you know, you get to the exercises and the rudimental exercises, but also the rudimental reading exercises and grooving exercises, and, you know, working on a ton of exercises. So, when you're doing that over the months, you can see that these exercises you're doing, you're getting better at them as you go along. You're becoming proficient in these great exercises. But then, as, you know, sort of being the young greenhorn, you know, new musician that I was, one day I asked him, I said, you know, all these things are going to be so amazing in my playing, and I see that they're amazing in yours, but how do I actually think of all of this stuff while I'm playing music? So when I'm performing and I'm out there, you know, how do I think about how am I holding my hands, and how am I holding this, and what is the fulcrum, and what is the pivot point, and, you know, all these techniques. How do I think of that when I'm playing music? And it actually took him off guard. It surprised him, because, you know, he hadn't really broached that topic with me, and he didn't sort of know how I would be getting it as a brand new person, really learning these techniques. But he said very quickly to me, "You don't." And I said, "You don't? You learn all these techniques, and then when you're playing music, you don't think about them?" He said, "No, you don't think about them at all. When you're playing music, you immerse yourself in the music, and you think about the music, and you're a part of that. The techniques and all the work that you've done before, some of that, or all of it, or however much of it you've worked on, to the point, is going to work its way into your playing. It's going to be there automatically because of all the technical work you did. That is going to be in your playing when you go to perform. But from the first time you go to perform to every time that you go to perform, think about the performance. Immerse yourself in the music. You won't be thinking about your techniques." So it was just one of those moments in time. Obviously, you know, when you're that young age and you're really trying to learn everything that you can learn from someone with these kinds of, you know, I was just so taken up with it that I was assuming that you would be thinking about this stuff all the time, because you were thinking about it so much there while we're playing. Anyway, that was a great lesson, and I have always used that in every aspect of my life when I'm learning techniques to do something new. Or even if I'm learning, I'm going to bring this example over to an example of this information in the book. So in this information that we have in this book, there are all kinds of techniques and examples and things that you can do and put in your schedule, and all these things to work on techniques for better living. Better living meaning living more of what you'd like to be doing, you know, understanding what you'd like to be doing, knowing what you like to be doing, and then moving forward in a balanced way, you know, considering all the various, you know, areas of your life, and, you know, making sure that you're living in balance, you know, and getting progress. And when you're working on those techniques, you know, you're learning to do that. But when you're actually living and you're in your day and you are actually now doing the things you love to do and you're rolling on with that, you don't interrupt the thought of that. You don't interrupt, that time period when you're right in the activity that you've been wanting to do, that these techniques help you to get to do, and that kind of thing. But obviously in the living of life, you don't sit around thinking about your techniques that you're using, to get there. So, that's just something I wanted to really kind of bring out today in this concept. So, just a little bit of a review here. When you go through this book, there are some basics that you want to get to work on, right away, and that you want to include in your life all the time. So they're going to be the first things that you're going to work on. So, in the concept of this book, we want you to be routinely creative, routinely practicing not only your creativity, but techniques to develop your creativity. Now, these exercises don't take very long. I mean, most of them are like a 10-minute exercise. You can put these in very regularly in your life, and in these scheduling things, we hope you put it in every morning for 10 or 15 minutes. Actually, I have a 15-minute one to do in the morning. And the first thing is it's to get you in the habit of using your creative techniques to be creative, and two, also to get you in the habit of your brain and thinking in your daily life that creativity comes into everything you do. So that's one of the basic cores. Another basic core is, once a week that you have a little meeting with yourself and you look at these 7 areas of your life and you say, am I paying attention to all these areas? And are these areas in progress? So that we don't let them fall into regress. We don't have one area of our life that's literally so neglected that it's going to start pulling the other areas down, so that, suddenly your well-being is going to be feeling compromised, and you're going to think, I feel down. I feel like I'm not making any headway. I'm just not feeling the well-being and the progress and that type of thing. And obviously, balance is one of the things that help with that. So the idea of those basic concepts, I guess the other one basic will be, there's going to be exercise in here to use your creativity to think of your life mission, to have ultimately develop a personal mission statement and keep that with you all the time to help you vet and decide on goals that are appropriate for you, that actually move you in the direction of things that are important to you, and not just moving you in the directions of things that you heard about being important or things that other people influenced you to be important. So in just a few minutes here, we've actually talked about the basics of this book and system. Those are the basics that, yes, we want you to study those, work with those, and then keep those active in your life every day and all the time. Now, when we get into all the various areas, there's a chapter for each one of the PROWIRC areas. Obviously, the PROWIRC acronym stands for Power, Relationships, Organization, Wealth, Image, Relaxation, and Creativity. We would like for balance to be in your life to keep these 7 areas in progress. As you're going through the book, in each chapter, there's going to be exercises and ideas to help you move one of these areas from regress or maybe from a stagnant time into a time of progress to help and increase the balance in your life. But what we're not expecting you to do is read the book and say, okay, I'm going to take every exercise for every area in this book, and I'm just going to, flood the zone and do them all the time. So that, my whole life is now taken up with doing exercises from the book, Happiness and Wellbeing. So that's where we're talking about techniques for living versus living. Just like techniques for playing music versus playing music. When you're out there playing music, you're not thinking about your techniques. They're the furthest thing from your mind. When you're living your life, you're not thinking about your techniques. You're not going to jam every idea from this entire book into your schedule and have it take over your schedule. It's designed to get you to the things you want to do in your life. The plan is for you to spend your time doing those things. So when you're actually using the overall basics we talked about in this book, I mean, you're really talking about, in the neighborhood, like for the creative exercises and in the morning, that thing of doing, some stretching and some physical stuff to kind of get you going and keep you going. That's like, that could be half an hour a day kind of thing. And, and then that meeting once a week is about an hour. Those are the basics. When you first sit down and you do this creative exercise to develop your mission statement and start to really vet your goals and think about the goals you have been doing and think, are they the best things for me? Do they relate to anything that's important to me in my life? Where did they come from? You're going to spend some hours doing those. But then once you have that mission statement together, you're going to consider it weekly in that meeting with yourself when you're thinking about your 7 areas and do one of these areas need some work? Should I look at some exercises from the book to help me improve that area? But you're going to have the mission statement together, so you're not going to be spending time on that all the time. It's going to be a guide for you. So that is of course going to be like a compass. And as we've said before, and the entire book is really like a compass. And so I've asked that question before. I'm going to ask it again because I want you to consider it often. Does a compass show us which direction to go? No, it doesn't. A compass shows us which direction is north, and from there, we decide which direction we want to go. And that's what these exercises are like. Now, as the time goes on, and you're working your way through the book, you read it, and you can actually read the whole thing, start to finish. It's not a difficult read. It's done in a very narrative fashion. The examples and exercises are laid out very simply to help you move ahead certain concepts or areas where you feel you need improvement and all that type of thing. When you are working and you have your basics in place and you're doing those few things and just keeping the 7 areas in progress to have that feeling of happiness and well-being, using your creative powers routinely so that you are really having the most interesting and life that you can have that relates to the things that you are interested in. When you find one of these areas you're looking at and you think, hey, there's one area of my life that I think that's in regress or it's a little stagnant. Maybe it's something to do with a relationship. Maybe it's something to do with my money. Maybe it's something to do with my personal image and how I see myself or how I'm seeing the spaces around me and the way I conduct myself. Or maybe it's something I see myself in interactions and social media. And, I'm looking at the image of that. Is that really the person that I see accomplishing all the things I want to do in my life? Is that person taking time to do that? So, all of these areas can be gone back to when you think, hey, there is this one area I would like to improve. I'd like to get it in progress. Use the techniques for that at that time. So again, just like when you're learning a musical instrument, let's say you get a book, a great big book on techniques for the thing. You don't read the whole thing and then try to implement the techniques at once. You might go through the whole thing and say, wow, this is the scope of the game. Here's where it goes. This is, if you have it all together with this instrument, this is what it looks like. But then you start with one technique and you go to the next one, in the time period you have. You still try to get your playing in, performing in. As soon as you're able to perform in music, I say, go do it. As soon as you're able to jam with people, I say, go do it. That actually gets your musicality going, gets your playing going, gets you to be musical. And that's the experience, of music. And again, with this, we're talking about the concept of, you use the overall basics to get you going into the life experiences that you want to have. Enjoy yourself. But that then is the living. The experiences that you get to, the experiences that you choose, the things that you decide to do with your day and your time, that is the living. So don't confuse techniques for living with living. Get around to doing lots of living. Keep the techniques in perspective of working on those, when you're actually working on those, when you're working on techniques, don't let it inhabit your mind all the time. Think of the things that you're doing, your relationships, and all the various things that you're doing be very present in the moment and think about living while you're living. Anyway, let's at the end of the video today, I hope you got some ideas and thoughts out of that. I'm just going to remind you of the mantra that we have here to anytime you need to stifle any negative self-talk or ideas that are not progressive, that are popping into your head, and you need to be reminded to move forward and help to do that. We have this mantra, and this is the mantra. I'm going to say it again for you here. Don't forget, I am a unique being, separate from my situation. I possess the godlike power of creativity, and I choose the power of creativity and thankfulness over fear, apprehension, or anxiety every minute of every day. Thanks for coming back to the channel today, and we'll see you again soon. The videos are generally going to be up weekly, and of course, in between times, I do quite a number usually of shorts during the week, and shorts can be anything from a 15-second, 1 or 2 lines. You know, obviously they advertise the channel for people that don't watch it and they see the shorts, but and some of the shorts are up to a minute. The neat thing about shorts sometimes, though, if you just want a little bit of a boost of something where a person's just hitting you with those hot button one-liners or 1 minute of an idea to remind you of something that might be important to you, you know, the shorts can be fun to watch, and you can actually go into the channel and say, oh, just show me a few minutes of the shorts, and they can be a bit fun too. Anyway, we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for coming back, and have a great day.